Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks so much for tuning in to Money, Finance, Freedom Week. We got a treat for you guys today. We got my brother. I just finished lifting weights with this guy. He is a champion, a guy that I love to death, man. He's a man that's building his way out of the rat race and sharing that in real time. A man with over 100,000 plus followers across social media. A man that really simplifies budgeting, investing, and is growing a dividend portfolio from $0 a month to many thousands a month to buy his freedom out. This is, again, a guy that I lift with. We are doubles pickleball champions. Some of my friends going to listen to that and feel a little bit slighted because we do dominate them at pickleball. This is my brother, my friend, a guy that I really love to death, man. This is Jeremy, a.k.a. Hipster Finance. Welcome to the pod, brother. How you doing today?
Hey, Tyler, appreciate you having me on, man. I think this should kind of become a thing where you do a lift and then you have them on your podcast immediately after. It's a nice combo.
Bro, it's been a great day, man, hanging out with you a lot. You're one of the people that I've connected with pretty early on social media. And man, I love our friendship. I feel like you're one of the best dudes I've ever met. And you're an authentic, great guy who just shares everything he's learning. And I appreciate everything you put out there, man. You've made me better with finance and investing. So I'm super grateful for you, brother.
I think if you meet someone like online, right, and they have an influence like you do, a lot of people are always like, oh man, they're totally different offline. But one thing that I always tell people about Tyler is you're exactly who I see every day online. You're just yourself, and that's what I appreciate about you. So when you asked if I could be on, super honored and love to come on and share with you.
I appreciate it, man. For better or worse, I'm just my wife says I'm like a dog, bro. I wake up happy, I chase things, I smile. Give me a treat, I'm happy, bro. So let's get into it, man. For anybody who might not know a little bit about you, can you kind of give your backstory, maybe who you are, what you're about, my man?
Yeah. So just have this brand, Hipster Finance. Really started it basically, when everyone 3 years ago or so, when everyone was stuck at home randomly with nothing else to do. During that whole phase of life that we all went through as a world, kind of came up with this brand. And, essentially I just wanted a way to sort of share what I was learning with other people. I think we've all been there where, you meet someone, whether it's on social media, whether it's on TV, maybe you read a book by them or you hear a podcast, and they really just positively influence your life with what they're doing. And just kind of documenting their journey has really helped me, seeing all these other accounts do that. So as I started to kind of, improve my finances, I wanted to share that with other people. And I thought it would also help and motivate me and obviously build a network of other people doing the same. And so, yeah, that's kind of where the brand came from. Again, I'm just trying to help educate people on money, put things in terms that, are easy for me to understand and how it clicks for me. And hopefully, that's something that relates for other people as well. I think, the concept of money education is not new, right? It's in the Bible, it's in the Quran, it's in all these historical stories. Some of my favorite money books are from like 1920. And yet so many people, including myself, until about the age of 30, struggle with understanding how to use money and understanding how to properly fit money into my life. And I think it's because it takes kind of that voice that you relate to finally make it click for you. And so that's kind of what I'm just trying to do. For me personally, how I got started, I was probably about 29 or so, right around that 30 age mark, which is kind of a turning point for me. I think for a lot of other people, it sounds kind of sad, but for me, it's like 30, you're an adult, right? Like you're a real adult at that point. And I really hadn't made any. Yeah, I hadn't made anything of myself. And I just felt super behind everyone that I knew. All my friends, I felt like they were all getting houses and had better cars than me, and felt like they were fully adults and taking care of themselves and others, et cetera. And that's kind of what motivated my journey. Honestly, I don't think I've shared this with you, but it really started in the gym, just like trying to build something of myself and working out every day and kind of that consistency. And that sort of led to like, Joe Rogan podcasts and other podcasts, which led me down the Dave Ramsey tunnel, and really learning about budgeting and personal finance. And it kind of grew from there. I would say the other defining moment for me was just my dad passing away a couple of years ago. He was really someone that helped take care of everybody, solved every problem. And if I had a problem, he solved it for me. And that was amazing for him to do as a father. But I realized after he passed away that like I was relying on that and I wasn't providing that for other people. And so this journey has really been about me helping to try to make sure, I can take care of myself financially and hopefully help others financially as well.
And that's super inspiring, brother. I think there's so many ways we could go. I didn't know that the gym was sort of the gateway drug that got you even into finance, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've spoken on it before, but there's just something about like going somewhere consistently, right? And showing up and putting in the habits and eventually seeing progress. Like you don't show up at the gym and then you're buff tomorrow. Like that doesn't happen. But you end up discovering like all these positive benefits that come not only from just the gym, but from showing up every day, from continuing to push through the struggle, from not seeing results but still going, right? And all those things kind of translate into so many other parts of your life.
That's right, man. So, okay, so you're 29, you're about to hit 30 and you kind of realize, okay, man, I don't have the kind of finances I want, or I'm kind of on pace maybe to just work till I'm 65 and kind of doing the normal thing, right? That's what the normies do, right? You do work your whole life. You hope you got 10 years left to retire and live a good life, right? So what was the sort of the clicking point for you where you said, hey, I'm going to start, taking control of my finances and living below my means and trying to do some of these things then? What was kind of the first step for you?
I mean, again, I think I was really privileged. I had great parents, and firstly, my mom, I would say, was always super frugal. She would always tell me, we're not cheap, we're frugal. Okay, there's a big difference. I can still hear her voice, and that concept was always just kind of instilled in me. And then my dad would always tell me, put away more than you think you're going to need for retirement. Like always put in more. And he would always be excited if I mentioned like they had a retirement plan at work. But I never really dove into it again until I started to realize, I think like, hey, if I don't start now, I'm going to be really behind the curve. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with working until whatever age you want to work for. I always say I love work. It's not about the work. It's about having to do work that you don't necessarily relate to, or having to really spend your life working on something that doesn't bring you value. Right. And so for me, I realized, hey, if I start now, I might be able to make a big impact later in life. And I can start, again, kind of channeling my energy towards things I really care about instead of just working for money.
Man, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, I think there's nothing. I love work too, man. If you gave me $20 million a day or whatever number, I'd still get up and do most of the things I do every day. I like to work. I never want to not work. But the saddest thing I saw as a bank manager for so many years was I'd see this like 67-year-old person come in, and I was in a lower income area for a few years, but I'd see this routinely, Jeremy, where they'd come in and man, they're still working like behind the desk at Walmart 4 days a week because all they have is Social Security, man. They have no retirement, they have no savings, they have no anything. And I remember just kind of being terrified at that point in my mid-30s, like, holy cow, man, if a lot of people are going through life this way, and I'm seeing a lot of people stuck in this spot, I got to do something else about that. That can't be the norm, right? So sounds like you kind of took control of that. If somebody's listening to this today and they say, well, what do I do, man? Maybe I'm 30 or I'm 40. I haven't put away anything. I don't even know what that means, right? Like, what would be your first how do you start and work with people, man, to kind of get them to see money a little bit different and to get money to work for them, as you said?
Biggest thing I would say first is again, my journey started at 29, close to 30. And I think we all start at different points. So the first thing I would say is if you're listening to this and you haven't started yet, regardless of your age, now is the time. I've got followers who send me DMs and they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s, and they're just starting their journey and they're super excited. And it really doesn't matter where you're currently at. You can get to a better place, and that better place may be different for each of us, right? I mean, maybe for some of us it's yachts and vacation properties and things like that. Maybe for others of us, it's just being able to have enough at the end of the month to where you're not in the negative and you can take care of an emergency, or maybe it's being able to put a little bit away so that, when you pass on, you can give that to family and really make an impact on their life, or give while you're here and make an impact on other people's lives. So the big thing is, firstly, just start. It really doesn't matter what age you are. Again, I think Gary Vee is super famous for saying, like, you're a lot younger than you think. And that always hits home for me. 30 feels late compared to a lot of the people that I know that started with money, but it's early compared to a lot of others. And so just start. And then secondly, I would say the first thing I always do is start with expenses. And so I think most people come to me, they want to get rich. They're like, I really want to be rich tomorrow. Like that's the feeling they come, and they think on the first call, like we're going to learn, how to get rich tomorrow and my whole world's going to change and I'm going to retire in 3 months or something. Unfortunately, that's not something I teach. I think that's like getting lucky, right? What I try to focus on is those good habits that are going to build something in the future, and really change. And so we start with the spending, because a lot of times people have a spending problem and not an income problem, at least the ones that I work with. And even if you do have an income problem, you just don't have enough money coming in. You don't know that until you really, truly look at your expenses. So I'll have people sit down and I'll have them literally just start tracking from the start for 1 month exactly what they spent. Every single thing, whether it's on a credit card, whether it's in cash, whatever it is, make sure you're tracking every single dollar that leaves your life and comes into your life. And at the end of that month, we can take a look at that data and really see, okay, what's reality look like? And again, there are some times where we look and it's like, you know what, you're just not making enough money. You're doing a great job with what you have, but it's not stretching far enough. But I would say at least here in America with the people I interact with, 9 times out of 10, it's just we're not allocating that money to the right areas. Again, if you're fine with that, that's fine. But if you would like to make your money grow, you've got to have money to invest. And so we always start with expenses and figuring out a way to just get a little bit extra at the end of the month to be able to take that money and use it towards what you want, something more important.
That's huge, man. And yeah, I think I remember when I first did this, several years ago, it shocked me. I had 6 or 7 automatic payment things. Some of them like $5 a month, right? You buy this subscription service, it's $20 a month. You don't think about it. You never use it, right? I've been doing it for a year, and it just auto renews. And so I found like 6 or 7 things, man, that we had auto signed up for that we weren't even using, just by finding out where your money's going. It was really eye-opening. I also remember it's kind of the joke, but like Starbucks at the time, man, 4 years ago, I was buying 2 Starbucks a day. They're $5.29 back then. I don't know what they are now, but they were $5.29. It's $10 a day. I was working 5 days a week. That's $50. It's $200 a month on Starbucks. My bank had free coffee, So it's like little things like that can make a massive difference. And then, once you kind of unlocked my brain to buying money, you can buy stocks and they produce dividends and all. We can get into that here in a bit, but that $200 a month, 10 years later, man, that can turn into a lot of money and can buy time and a lot of the things that you want to buy, right? So can you kind of work through that process then? Say you get people to kind of track where they go from there and they have some extra left over now. Where do you usually see people go with that? Or does it depend on the individual, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and you're really hitting on opportunity cost, right? Like when you start to look at the money that comes into your life as something that could potentially change your future or improve your future, you're really spending your future, right? And you're spending future opportunities. And that concept really changed the idea of spending money for me. Like, hey, it's okay to spend money, but if I'm gonna spend this money, is it really worth it? Am I getting value out of it? Because if I'm not, then I'm wasting it. And so the example you gave with coffee, right? For me, what do I like about coffee? I like drinking the coffee. I like that it gets me amped up. I like a nice warm cup of, it like warms your soul when you're working. And so all I care about is the coffee. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. And so what I love to do with people is really figure out ways to how can you have the same experience but for less money, right? And so your life really isn't changing. Your lifestyle is the same, but at the end of the month, instead of spending everything you have, you've got 10% left over, whatever. So instead of Starbucks, right? Like you said, your office has free coffee. Boom, there you just save $5. Then, like you said, maybe you look at your subscriptions and you think, all right, cool. Do I need every single subscription? Do I need Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime? There's a bunch of them, right? Paramount Plus. I don't need all of them. So maybe I just do one for a month and then the next month I can switch. And so now I just saved, I don't know, $40, $50 there. Then you go to your gym, right? Me and you work out at a great gym location. And we often talk about, we pay like $8 or $10 a month. Well, I know plenty of people paying $160 a month for essentially the same gym. And so if you can instead change that, now you just saved another $150, right? And you do that in every single area of your life. And the next thing you know, again, your life didn't really change. Everything looks the same. You're still wearing a nice pair of jeans, only they're, maybe they're from American Eagle for $30 instead of Levi for 60 or 80, right? And every single little area of your life you saved, $10 here, $10 there, $50 here, whatever. And at the end of the month now, instead of being in the red, you've got, let's say, I don't know, $200-300 left over. From that point, it becomes about, what do you want to do? Like if I'm talking to someone, they have no spending or no savings at all, and they have nothing, that's our first goal. Let's get you out of the negative, and let's make sure, if something happens, you can take care of it without, making bad decisions like going into debt, etc. So let's put aside some savings. Then once you've got some savings down, then it becomes about, where do you relate when it comes to investing? What kind of investing works for you? A lot of times, that's just education. They have to learn about different types of investing. They have to learn what's out there. We've talked about farmland, you and I, before. We've talked about property and real estate. We've talked about stocks, et cetera, all kinds of stuff out there. But you really shouldn't start investing until you figure out what it is that works for you, and and you kind of understand what you're doing. So build some money up, and then we talk about what really works for them. There's so many different ways to invest, and again, we can talk about that later. But it's really about what fits their personality and what matches kind of what they want to do in their future.
Yeah, I love that, man. You hit on a lot of really good stuff. I think both of our jaws hit the floor when our boy Tony, shout out to Tony, I bet he'll listen to this. He told us he was paying $190 a month for his gym, and we're like, bro, we pay $8. We literally pay $8, and look at this place. He's like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, just one little decision like that. That's saving thousands of dollars a year, right? Like, that's insane. That's $1,800 a year or whatever it is. And then I love how you make it very easy, and you say, like, it's not these massive changes. I think that's a big misconception with everybody, whether it be getting your body into shape or saving a little money every month or investing. Like, everybody thinks it's this big complex thing. In reality, it's just little choices done well. And I love how you kind of break that down, make it easy. You kind of open my eyes to that a lot. And I want to move into now kind of, let's say somebody gets out there and they say, hey man, I've done this. I've got $500 a month now extra, and I've built up my savings, and I've got that peace of mind, right? If something goes wrong, I can pay for it. Now, what do I do next? And I know you're a big proponent of dividend stocks, and I'm pretty hooked on these things now too. Can you kind of share a little bit down that rabbit hole of how you get into that, some of the benefits of that, what your goals are with that, and kind of why you believe in that pretty long term?
Yeah, I think initially my first investments, I've told a little bit of this story. My first investments, I just went on E-Trade and I just bought some random stocks. I think I got 2 video game companies, Glue Mobile and Zynga. I don't know if anyone plays cell phone video games, those companies. I bought some kind of pharmaceutical thing. I don't even know what it was, but I bought it. And then I bought like a stevia company. Like, it was like a sugar alternative. And I'm like, this is going to change the world, like it's an alternative to sugar. It's healthy. And again, I think 2 of those investments did okay. 2 of them just completely went to zero and lost all my money. Maybe it was about $1,000 or something. And the 2 that did okay, they were not dividend paying stocks. They just kind of went up, and then they would go down, and they would go up, and they would go down. And it was exciting at first. And then eventually it was like, okay, I put $1,000 in, and now it's like $500. Like, I just like lost money. This was not fun. Right. And then when I discovered something, called dividends, where a company basically will pay you a portion of the profit to hold shares in their company, it started to change for me. And so again, let's say, company Microsoft or whatever that pays a dividend, let's say they made 10 apples this quarter in profit. Well, they're going to share, 1 apple with you, since you hold shares in that company. As a shareholder, they're going to give you 1 apple every quarter to hold their shares and continue holding their shares. It really changed the concept for me, because instead of watching these stocks go up and down and feeling good when they went up and then feeling bad when they went down, it kind of forced me to think long term. Like, all right, I'm getting paid to hold this. And now there's 2 ways I could potentially get paid. The first way is kind of the classic way we think of, which is the share price goes up as the company grows. But there's a second way that basically every single quarter that I hold this stock, or every month, or whatever that payout period is, I'm going to be rewarded for just holding it. So you're kind of rewarded for good behavior, right? You're incentivized to hold long term. And so I kind of became obsessed at that point with holding things that pay me money. I don't own any real estate, but same concept there. If you own a house and you're renting it out, it pays you money to just continue to keep someone renting that house. So yeah, as you mentioned, they can get addicting. It motivates me to invest more, right? Because like you said, you're essentially buying future income. And in the beginning, it started out, I remember, like a 15-cent dividend. And I'm like pumped, like, man, I just earned 15 cents. And for the rest of my life, hopefully I'm going to make that 15 cents. Right. And it was like laughable from the outside. And I even had friends like, oh, that's cool. Like, and you could see the look on their face, like this guy's crazy. And meanwhile, they're buying like Tesla and they're buying Bitcoin, and these things are doing great for them, right? But there's no cash flow. Anyway, fast forward to the future, like, Tesla's done really well, but it's also gone up and down a lot. And I've had friends that lost a ton of money because they bought it when it was really high. And similar on Bitcoin and alternatively, my dividends now, I'm not seeing paychecks at 15 cents anymore. I'm seeing $50. I'm seeing $100. I'm having $1,000 months where $1,000 came from me just for holding stocks and companies that I believe are going to do well long term. So anyway, getting paid to hold something kind of changed the investing game for me. And it's not for everybody, but for me, that's a concept that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really unlocked my brain. I think you put a tweet out one time that I saw on Instagram too. And by the way, guys, I'm going to link everything that Jeremy Hipster Finance does down here. He's a great follow on Instagram and on Twitter. I'll link everything he does below. But I remember you put something out one time that really changed me. You're like, look, I made $1,100 this month just for holding these companies. I didn't have to drive to work. I didn't have to sit in any meetings. I literally just got paid to hold these companies. And I'm like, man, that's kind of a cheat code, right? And so I remember the first time I think I texted you, I was like, bro, I made $5.44 this month, but I was like pumped about it because I was thinking, well, yeah, you joke about, oh, well, it's only 15 cents. But once you can do it on a small scale, you can replicate it, right? It was the same thing when I grew my social media from 0 followers to like 200. I literally knew I would be at 100,000 someday. I was like, it might take me a decade and I don't know how long, but like, I know I can just replicate this formula, get better at it, pivot, whatnot, and keep going. And I think that's the cool thing about internet money or dividend money, man. Once you can make a little bit of it for doing it, well, you can keep scaling it and keep going. And so now kind of talk about your strategy around it. Cause again, you're making $1,000 a month, right? To just do nothing, to hold these stocks. And so ultimately, is that kind of how your game plan is to finance your retirement and finance your lifestyle and things like that? Because you reinvest all those dividends, right? And so it keeps growing and keeps growing.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, like you start to see how it can scale. I think, another thing that I spent a lot of time learning about, which you talked about earlier, was just budgeting. And so as you reduce your expenses, you start to realize, okay, I need X amount to live for a year. They call it kind of like financial runway, right? Let's say you currently have a net worth of $100,000 and it costs you, let's say $10,000 to make it an easy equation to live. Every year you spend 10 grand and your net worth is 100 grand. Well, you have 10 years of runway, essentially, is how you could look at it, where you could live your life for 10 years with that money. With cash flow, similar concept. If you spend 10 grand a year, well, now essentially you just need 10 grand a year in passive income, whether those are dividends, whether that's rental property, whether that's whatever, coming in. And now essentially you're financially independent, so to speak. Your expenses cover your costs and life changes, right? Instead of thinking I need to go to work for money, you could start to think, well, maybe I like work, but I want to work somewhere that maybe doesn't pay as well, but I can help people, or I like animals, I can help animals, or I really like working with my hands, whatever that looks like. But you can start to be motivated around the work itself and the value you're providing outside of the money that you need. So yeah, right now I think I just crossed about $10,000 at the end of last year. It was right near 10 grand. And obviously my current lifestyle costs more than 10 grand. I think I'm in the 30 to 40,000 a year range. But there are people out there that literally have gotten their lifestyles down to 10, 15,000 a year. And that means, I would already be there essentially if my lifestyle were cheaper. So currently just continue to try to grow that. Again, dividends are not risk-free. You have the same risks you have in the normal stock market. If that company goes bankrupt, you're going to obviously lose your money. That cash flow will disappear. Companies can also cancel dividends, which happened a lot, over the last couple of years, especially during the lockdowns and things like that. But yeah, so those are risks you have to be aware of. But assuming those things don't happen and you invest in quality companies, as you should be, that's just going to continue to grow. And again, as I mentioned, the share price can grow, but even those dividend payments can grow. And so a lot of companies, if they continue to be profitable, they raise that dividend. And so a lot of companies this last quarter, I got an 8% raise on one. I got a 10% raise on another. And again, all those little acorns essentially add up over time. For me, as you mentioned, I reinvest them, but I don't feel bad if I spend them. If I feel like, hey, this month things are a little tight, or I want to buy something, I just take the money out and buy something with it. Again, it really just kind of lets your brain realize, like, hey, this is real money. This is coming in. This is cash flow. And one of the accounts I follow, Div Cultivator, was really big on that. He'd always say, like, who cares? Just spend, get a dividend and buy something, and I understand why now, because it motivates you, right? Mm-hmm. So I am reinvesting most of those dividends now. But if I was at the $30,000-$40,000 range, which is, it's about $1 million invested if you were getting, say, a 4% return in dividends, then again, that would change the game for me. I'm sure I'd chill on a beach for a week or two. I'd go to the gym at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. just to make people angry, like I'm not at my job because I don't need one right now. And then again, I would kind of shift my focus to what do I want to do that really brings value, because money isn't as much of an obstacle anymore.
I love that. And I think it's a really cool way to look at it, as far as, like, I remember when I text you, like, oh, I made $5.23. And then you're like, hey man, like, you can go buy a coffee. It's free. You didn't even work for it. Go get it, or whatever it was. Go buy yourself a sub, whatever. It is cool to see it kind of in real terms. And I love the way you kind of think about money, because it really made me think. You talk about that runway. And I kind of remember when I was working my corporate job, which I was really grateful for, provided a great paycheck, learned some great things. But again, it wasn't really kind of my passion. I knew I wasn't going to be there, hopefully super, super long term. But, I started looking at it that way. Okay, here's our monthly nut. It's X amount. So every time I can invest X amount, I bought myself a month less to work, is kind of the way I looked at it. And just using money to not really buy stuff as much, but buy time, which I think most of us want quite a bit more than stuff, if we really get intentional and really think about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's an author out there, and basically his expenses were below $10,000, and he and his wife retired early, and essentially, like, he didn't even have a lot of money. I think he had, I don't know, well, not a ton when you think of overall spends. I think he had around $450,000, somewhere in that range, which again is not like a millionaire, right? Yeah. But he was able to retire early, and he's like, I have like 70 plus years of runway, right? Like, I could literally never make a paycheck for 70 years and I would still be able to afford my lifestyle, because his expenses were so extremely cheap. And the other thing he hit on that really clicked for me was, a lot of people think they're never going to make money once they, quote unquote, reach that financial freedom, or they retire early. But people find all kinds of different things to do to make extra money, right? Like, you've built a following online, and you help, change people, and change their mentalities and things like that. And obviously it can become a business in and of itself. And through your passion, you've been able to do that, right? You've got personal trainers, all kinds of different things that people just find through their passions to make extra money. And that's in and above what you retire with. So I've always thought about that too, as well. It's like, it's not like once you reach your retirement number or whatever, and you're financially independent, that you're going to stop earning money, because a lot of the things that we enjoy doing have the side benefit of also paying a little bit of money.
That's right, man. I think you can even be super intentional about that. Like, I like to golf, to be really honest, but I just looked at it about 6.5 years ago and said, every time I go golf, it costs me $50 and it costs me 4 hours. Well, I also like to play poker at the time, right? And I'm like, well, on average, when I play poker, I make $70 an hour, and I also enjoy it about the same amount. So I'm just going to choose to do the thing that gets me closer to my goal every time. And I sold my golf clubs, right? I think you can be mindful about those things and getting where you want to go with your goals too, man. Which I think, everybody should kind of pause at points in their life and say, where do I want to get to? And am I willing to pay the price to get there? One thing I want to hit, man, Jeremy, because I think you're really good at this, is like personal finance and investing. if you would have asked me 5, 6 years ago before I met you and a lot of guys like you that I've gotten a chance to connect with, I just thought it was this big, complex, crazy formula. Nobody understood it. The market goes up, it goes down. I'm scared of it. I don't know. I don't understand it. What are some kind of common myths on personal finance and investing that you can kind of dispel, or maybe make some of these things that sound really complex easy for the common person to understand? Maybe they're out there. Hey, Jeremy, I don't know what to do, man. I have a little extra each month, but I just put it in savings. I don't really know what to do. What would you tell somebody like that?
There's a lot of myths out there, like anything, right? A lot of what we see on TV or even social media, can point you in the wrong direction. So I firstly would say one of the most powerful things you can do is educate yourself. I think even if you have a lot of money and you can afford an advisor or someone to take care of your money for you, you should have a financial education because it helps you understand, hey, is this guy legit? Is this guy leading me the wrong way? Is this person telling me something that isn't, financially sound? So a big myth, I guess, would be you only need a financial education if you don't have money, because we see rich people go broke or get led astray all the time. And so you should know enough to be able to kind of assess the people that you're working with at all times.
That's a great one. I got to pause you there and say, isn't it like 80% of former NBA and NFL players go bankrupt within a few years because they don't have any kind of baseline knowledge?
Yeah, man. I mean, you could list them out, right? Like famous ones like MC Hammer and, there's all kinds of celebrities out there that have, Michael Jackson, et cetera, big time celebrities that were making a ton of money. And at some point the money just dries up. And so I laugh every time I see, I guess that's kind of a myth in and of itself, is that you can out earn a spending problem, right? I see it all the time. It's really popular just to say, oh, I don't like to budget, I'll just earn more, right? And it's like, it's a great phrase. It makes me feel good, but unfortunately, it's just not true. Most people aren't earning more, they're just spending more. And eventually you're going to reach that cap, or you're going to get to a point in your life where money stops coming in to the point where it was before. And during those good times, you didn't take advantage of it, right? Like one of my favorite Bible quotes talks about the ants, right? And they're always preparing and building. And during the lean years, the Bible talks about people should store up for the times that, or during the good years, should store up for the lean years, right? So yeah, that whole concept. I would say another big one for me, a big myth, is investing is risky. Again, investing is absolutely risky, but we see people all the time doing things with their money that the money's just gone, right? We talked before about, I think I was reading a stat the other day, it's something like 60% of Americans currently live paycheck to paycheck, right? And one small financial emergency, like $300-400, they wouldn't be able to afford. That sounds pretty risky to me, right? And again, some people are in that position through no fault of their own, and they can't really control that. But if you can control that, why would you put yourself in a position that's that risky? And so when I look at investing, yes, investing can be risky. You should be educated. You could certainly lose all your money, but what's the alternative? Not investing, spending all your money, right? That's not exactly a risk-free alternative. So that would be a big one. Let's see, what else? If I'm thinking about myths that are out there, another big just implies with dividends themselves, right? I read a lot that dividends are a waste. It's essentially the company just wasting money when they give shareholders a dividend or a portion of that profit. They're just wasting money, and the stock is going to go down by the same amount. So you're moving backwards anyway. To that, I would say companies waste money on a lot of things. I see companies giving out record bonuses to people that didn't perform. I see companies, wasting money into some new thing they thought was going to work out. I would love for them, of all those things, to waste money on the shareholder, aka me. And the other thing is a lot of times if a company is paying a dividend, they should be financially savvy to be able to afford that dividend. They should be making sure they're managing their finances in the right way to be able to afford it. So again, you want them to be a good business manager, and dividends can be a part of that. Last one I think I could think of offhand is small expenses. I think you hit on it a little bit with Starbucks and stuff. Small expenses don't matter, I think is a huge myth that's out there. Ramit Sethi, he wrote, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Great book. I love his stuff, but one thing in there that I think for me, I kind of disagree with is he says, really, really save money on those big things. And that's what's going to pay off in the long run. So if you save money on that home purchase or that car purchase, that's really going to end up paying off way more than these small expenses. I think the problem is we underestimate how many small expenses we can build up in our lives every single day. Like you said, that $5, that $10, that subscription service of only, hey, it's only $20 a month. I was looking at a subscription service the other day, and I think it was like 200 something a year, but it's only $20 a month. And so it makes you think, oh, it's only this, but it's actually a lot more when you add it up over time. And so I would say definitely save money on the big things that matter, like Ramit says, but I would also say don't discount how small expenses can add up in your life, especially if there's small expenses that you don't really value and you're just kind of wasting money.
Yeah, that's huge, man. The one big one is that you can't out earn the bad spending habits. And I think that's why money and mindset kind of go hand in hand, right? And talk about this a lot, where I had a client at the former bank I managed that was like a specialist kind of surgeon. And I'll never forget, man, he earned $84,000 a month after taxes. It would be deposited into his account the first of every month. He was like in his 50s and he had a negative net worth. And he'd been earning this money for 12, 13, 14 years, man, and a negative net worth. He spent about $100K a month. His 28-year-old wife was very good at spending money, but I just think it goes to show, man, you cannot just always say, well, I'm going to earn more. I'm going to earn more. And there will come a window where that guy's not able to earn that kind of money anymore. And so you have to be prudent. And I liked how you brought the biblical principles back into it too. Jeremy and I also go to the same church, by the way. But I think, there's so much wisdom in the Bible that talks about that and giving yourself margin and what that does for you peace-wise. I think to me, to be able to drink the Starbucks coffee or have a fancier car or whatever that might look like doesn't mean near as much to my mental health and my peace as knowing that, man, if something breaks down, we can just pay for it. That matters a lot more to me.
Yeah, I think, I firstly, I would say the Bible obviously has a ton of wisdom in it, even if you're not religious. One of my favorite accounts, Gerald Peters, talks a ton about the Bible. He's always mixing in principles with his teaching. And yet he'll tell you, like, I'm not really religious. But I think he understands, like, there's so much wisdom in there that you can pull from. And whether or not you're taking it from a religious context, it can really have an impact on your life. But yeah, I mean, again, you just frequently overlook all those expenses and how they can pull off your life.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, let's talk about, the B word, the budget, because you mentioned the budget. And I know some people are so pushed back towards this, man. I was too. I don't need a budget, man. I'm fine. But once I actually did track the stuff where it went, is that the number one reason why that's kind of the first place you always start is, hey, if you don't track it, you don't really know what happens, right? You can kind of talk about why that's so important and maybe why that should be your first step pretty much always.
I think two things here, right? Like, for me, the budget is the foundation to good personal finance, good investing, and just managing the money in your life. It's the foundation of your house. And I'm going to make an example, a house example. So if you know how to build a house or you're in construction, I apologize because I'm probably going to really mess it up. I don't know a lot about building houses, but I assume the foundation is really important in a house. You can't just, number one, you can't put ceiling tiles on a house if there's no roof on it, right? You can't go put tiles on when there's no roof. You can't put a window in when there's no walls. You can't, start to build this gigantic structure of multiple stories, a big building on top of something. If the foundation isn't stable, it's all going to collapse. And that's why the budget to me is so important, because you can be a great investor, you can earn a crazy income, you can understand all these different financial concepts, but if you're not doing some kind of a budget and making sure you're spending less than you earn, that house, again, is going to collapse, no matter how good it looks on the outside, no matter how big it is. And if anything, the bigger it gets, the more that foundation, if it's not strong, becomes a weakness to the overall structure. So for me, that's why I always start there, because it is the foundation. And again, when you have extra money, you can make mistakes. You can make more mistakes. You can take more risks. And so I always say that too. If, hey, you have $10,000 extra dollars coming in a month, right? That's crazy. You could do a lot with that 10,000. I could try to see, hey, let's see real estate, right? Or, hey, let's put 1,000 into Dividend stock and see what that does. Maybe I want to learn about cryptocurrency or something crazy. Okay, I can put 1,000 in there, and if I lose it, I still have another 9,000 coming in every month, right? And so again, the more you're able to cut expenses, which is usually through a budget, the more powerful your financial machine gets. And again, the stronger your foundation gets. The other thing is, you mentioned the B word. I think a lot of people are afraid of a budget, or they hate a budget. I even see personal finance accounts saying, I don't budget. And they're like famous for that. Like, I don't budget and I still save X amount of money. I don't know why we're so afraid of the B word. But for me, I just think of budgeting as saving money. Budgeting is telling your money where it's going to go. It could be for you a spreadsheet. It could be for you of looking through the data. And again, I highly recommend that for people that are just starting. But I also think any budget is better than no budget. So one of my favorites is what I call the lazy budget. And that's literally just, you can set it up with your bank account. And if you have a 9-to-5 job, your HR department, essentially you make sure that when you get paid, let's say you want to start with 10% of your income, or if that's a little bit too much, maybe start with 5% of your income. When you get paid, have your paycheck pay out 5% automatically to one account. And then the 95% that's left over, or the 90% left over, goes into another account. That one main account with the 95%, that's your spending account. You're going to spend everything in that account to your heart's desire, right? Until the end of the month. And then that other account that you separated that 5 or 10% from is your budgeted account, right? You're saving that 5 or 10%. You're essentially budgeting to save 10 and spend 90. Very simple, right? I call it the lazy budget. It's still budgeting. Now, don't tell yourself that if you won't do it. But to me, the best budget is one that you do. And that's often the one that's easiest for people. If I start them with a lazy budget, then I say, okay, maybe you start with 5%, get used to that. Oftentimes you don't even miss the money once you get used to it. Right. And then you can up that. Maybe you go to 10%. I know people who save 50, 60, 70, 80% of their income because obviously they have a higher income, but they built those good habits. And so you can slowly build that percentage up through that lazy budget, so to speak, even without getting super technical.
I love that, man. That's a great strategy. Really, we use that for our giving, because once the money was already in our main account, it physically hurt me to give it. But if it just automatically goes every month and I don't see it, it felt like it didn't hurt, man. So that we started small and kept upping that. So I like that strategy a lot, man, because then it's, well, I'm living on 90%, I'm living on 95%, or whatever that is you decide. I love how you broke that down, man. I think that's a lot of wisdom right there. People just open a brokerage account and start to send 5% every month. Don't even look at that thing, man. Just buy a couple of those easy, the S&P 500, whatever you're going to buy, right? Don't even look at that thing for a year and then look back, and now you've got some nice margin built up,
Yep, exactly. And I would say, the hard part is finding the money, right, to invest. And so if you start to master your budget, you start to be able to save. Worst case scenario, you don't invest for the first year and you just pile up cash. And let's say you had a great year, you made great money and you saved a bunch of money and you've got, 20 grand, 30 grand sitting in the bank that you don't need. That's a great position to be in. Now you can educate yourself along the way and you can decide where to allocate that money. But worst case, you're still sitting on 20 or 30 grand, even if you don't invest it.
That's right, man. That's huge. Well, man, I could talk to you all day. Me and Jeremy, we lift a lot. We meet at the gym once a week. We play pickleball together a lot. This is one of my best friends here in town. I really appreciate you coming on, man. Real quick, I got to have you talk some smack to Logan and Sam, the other guys we play at pickleball, because we are world champions against them. So maybe we give a shout out to them, man. Logan had beat me one-on-one right before Jeremy came in, and then me and Jeremy whooped him and Sam in some pickleball, man, last time we played.
I think the best feeling about that was they both feel like better athletes to me, is how I felt. Like they both are stronger than I am and just more athletic. And so it was great to be able to turn the tides somehow. I think you were probably carrying me a little bit more.
I think it was just our sheer mindset and will, brother. We would not be denied. Well, man, I always end all these, man, on rapid fire questions. And again, guys, I'm gonna link everything that Jeremy does below. He's a great follow on Instagram, on Twitter. He got 100,000 plus followers across social media. Now, he does some great coaching and budgeting. I personally have had friends that have gone over to him and said, holy cow, just by having a couple calls with this guy, man. And he's super cheap. I'm always telling him he's way too cheap on this stuff, but he's very, very affordable, and he just wants to help people. And I think, man, just a couple calls with him too can really, really change the way you view money, that you save money. Having a guy walk you through it, that just makes it very simple, and it can literally change your life. Booking a couple calls with this guy. So I'm gonna link everything he does below, man. And I appreciate everything you put out there, brother. You're the man. So thanks for coming on too, man. But we're going to end with some rapid fire questions, man. So I'm going to give you 5 questions. Just give me the first thought that comes to mind. Is that fair?
Sounds good.
All right, man. What is the number 1 book you recommend to start learning on finance, or the most impactful book to you on finance?
For me, I have to go. It's called Early Retirement Extreme. I kind of hit on the author a little bit earlier, Jacob Lund Fisker, excuse me. He was like, he went to, I don't know, philosophy. He's a super interesting guy. But basically that book completely changed how I thought about money. It turned my world upside down. It's very unique. He comes at it from kind of a systems and efficiency, sort of an engineer type mindset, where he wants his life to be the most efficient it can be. And so, how you're spending money, how you're choosing to spend your time, et cetera. He thinks about it from an efficiency standpoint. There's some environmental stuff in there as well, but the allegories he uses, the analogies, and the stories he tells are completely unique. Again, I think he spends less than $10,000 a year. At least he did at the time of writing that book. So super low expenses and really interesting ways to think about money and how you're using it. Again, I think he was able to retire with a fairly small sum and a huge runway because his expenses are so low. So I have to recommend that book to anyone else because it's just so unique and interesting.
That's awesome, man. I need to check that one out. I actually haven't read that. I appreciate that. What is the biggest influence or hero you've kind of looked up to along your journey, man?
I have to say my dad always. I mentioned him a little bit in the beginning, but I was super lucky. I had a great dad, and I think anybody that's had an amazing dad, knows how privileged they are and how amazing that is and how much that did for their life. But he was just a huge character in my life. I think when I think about like superhuman dad things he did, I remember one time me and my brother were getting in trouble. We're in the backyard, and I think we were fighting each other, doing something we're not supposed to do. And he did have a little bit of a temper, but I remember he came into the backyard, and I don't know, my brother might've been hitting me with his, I don't know, fighting me with a bat that he had. He had this like metal aluminum bat. He played baseball, and we were messing around with that. My dad was mad, and he's like, I told you guys, not to fight or something. And I remember he took the bat, and it was metal, and he just bent it in half with his knee. And I just remember like being like, oh my gosh, my dad is like superhuman. And me and my brother just forever, the rest of our lives, thought he's like this superhuman character. And I remember we worked out probably maybe 3 months before he died, and he could still do more pull-ups than me, excuse me. And I'm in my I'm 30, and I can't out pull up a guy who's in his 60s. So I'm just, amazing guy, and again, helped a lot of people. And so for me, that's my inspiration.
That's awesome, man. I know how highly you talk about your dad all the time. And I just always think like he's probably looking down on you and getting glimpses, and just super proud, man. And super, super happy to see where you are in your life, and the fact that you pour into others and help people too, man. I think those things come full circle, man. So I love that, brother. I wish I would have got to meet your dad. Seems like an amazing guy, man.
Thanks, man.
What's your favorite workout body part that we always do at the gym together, man, and why?
I used to think arms, but you killed my arms today at the gym. I would say I love when we do legs, because I hate doing leg day. And I would say, honestly, if anybody's out there and there's something you don't like to do that's good for you, find a good friend and do it together, because it becomes fun. Tyler started forcing me to do leg days with him, because we both have not the most aesthetically pleasing legs, I would say. Right. Not the biggest legs out there. And you always push me. And obviously, if I was there by myself doing leg day, I would probably give half the effort. So I love doing leg day with you.
Yeah, same, man. I joked with you guys this morning is 100% true. I would not have gone to the gym had you not been there, man. Today's a day I could have justified, and I was up late last night, and I got 25,000 steps yesterday. I just have another walking day, but just the fact of meeting you at the gym like holds me accountable too, man. So I'm super grateful for that, man. I love those leg days, man. Hip thrusts. Shout out to hip thrusts. The hip thrust machine, man. Becoming one of the favorites. Well, I'm interested in this, man. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Man, that one's hard. I went to, I'm big into movies. I've watched a ton of movies, especially as a kid. I remember like me and my brother would rewatch like Shawshank Redemption and The Natural. He probably watched, 100 times when I was there with him. So all those movies stick out, but I would say the one that really had kind of a big life impact would be Fight Club. It's a book as well. So if you prefer the book, it's a great book. But it has so many interesting philosophies in it. I mean, there's like a ton of quotes I'm always using, like the things you own end up owning you, right? Like this concept of if you buy all this stuff, eventually, you got to work harder to afford it, or, you can't, maybe you bought a house and now you can't leave that area because you're stuck to the house or whatever. It's just these concepts that were crazy. There's a group of men, right, that get together, and obviously they do a bunch of mischief together, which that's not good, but it's all about kind of getting stronger together through those around you and your friend group, right? So that's really big. There's just a ton of quotes. You're not the money in your bank. You're not your khakis. You're not what you wear, right? You're more important than just the money that you have. We're all byproducts of a lifestyle obsession. Like, again, the idea that we're all chasing the Joneses, right? We're all trying to impress each other. And if we could just stop that, we would probably be a lot happier and there'd be a lot less problems in the world. So yeah, I would say probably Fight Club. Yeah.
Amen, man. I need to rewatch that one. I haven't seen it in 5-6 years, man. That's a great film, man. I love that. Well, brother, last question, man. And again, thank you so much for coming on and taking time out. I know you're busy, man. You probably got plans with the girl today. You guys are always doing fun stuff, man. Heading out to wineries, heading to hikes, heading to do all these 20-mile cycle rides, what you did yesterday, all these fun things. But I appreciate you coming on, man. What's some future plans? Maybe some goals for you in 2023? What are you working on, and where can the people find you, man?
Yeah, man. Again, appreciate you having me on. Super honored. And I know you've got some real rock stars on this podcast. So I felt I didn't feel deserving, but hey, you gave me the offer. I'm coming. So really glad.
You're more than deserving, man. You're the first person I thought of on Money Week, man. Got to have you on here.
Thanks, man. But yeah, as far as plans and kind of goals currently, trying to hit 12,000 in dividend income. So that's kind of a big metric for me. I think, again, a lot of the money lessons that I learned or that I talk about, it's because I did them and because I learned them. And so I think FOMO is a big thing that happens to all of us. Fear of missing out. We see other people making a bunch of money doing something else, and we kind of get sidetracked into it. And I'm still always susceptible to that. And throughout my investing journey, I've gotten sidetracked a few times, but I think one thing I know I am is I love to hold things that pay me money, and I love dividends. And so I really want to crush to 12,000 and keep going from there. That's a big one. Continue to grow the brand and, help as many people as I can. And then, I'm about halfway through my financial independence journey. So reaching that FI number. I'm always jealous when I see you post about, you just took your kids to the park at, 1 p.m. for like 3 hours. And, that was like your big thing for the day. And I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. So being able to control who you spend your time with sounds amazing. And I'm about halfway to that journey. So that's a big goal for me as well. As far as where you can find me, again, Twitter, I think it's finance_hipster on Twitter. Please be careful, because me and Tyler were just talking about this, but there's a ton of fake accounts out there. I do not trade crypto. I don't trade Forex. I don't have a trading group, even of stocks. So I will never, take your money to be in a trading group and teach you secret stocks or Forex to buy. So please don't listen to any DMs like that you might get, because it's not me. And then on Instagram, again, Hipster Finance on Instagram. Again, there's only one account on Twitter and on Instagram. And again, I do not do Forex or crazy crypto trading. So anyway, you can find me on there anytime.
These scammers are wild, man. I'll definitely put both of those links under there, man. I highly recommend following this man. You'll learn a lot. He'll open the way you think about money, and I appreciate it, man. I joke that other people are, they have to show up for their boss, but my boys are demanding where I am every day, man. Right after this, we'll be hitting a trampoline park. We'll be hitting the park later. These boys are wild. They don't wear out, man. So I'm gonna go do the dad thing. But I so much appreciate you hopping on, brother, sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. I appreciate it. Everybody listening out there, this has been Money, Finance, Freedom Week. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Had some great guests on here. Just appreciate you guys, give us some feedback, drop a like and a comment below. Really helps the channel. Go be kind to yourself. Go be kind to others. Fire us out on the last word, Jeremy. What do you want to say to the people?
And just again, appreciate you having me on, Ty. Ty is somebody that, again, has really influenced my life. Anytime I'm being lazy and I'm not at the gym, I think of him. Anytime I'm not helping others or being positive, I'm wearing his shirt today. I actually wore it to the gym. saying positivity is a choice, but it's just amazing what you can do when, you know, you're happy and you find what's good for you and you can help others feel that way. You just have such a big impact. Again, when you put a smile on their face and you make them feel good. You always compliment my arms. Even if they're not that big, you tell me, man, your arms look great today. It just makes
Bro,
me
you got
feel
them
good.
veins firing out. It looks good. Man. You got them snake veins firing out, man.
Just appreciate you having me on. And again, the things that you've done for me and others.
I appreciate that, man. I think that's a bigger lesson too, to find community. You know, if you find other people that are into investing and they're into fitness and health and growing, seek those people out, man. That's been a cheat code for me, man. I love being surrounded by guys like you, man. So I appreciate it. Go have the greatest day, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, man.